Today we're drafting step by step out of Pattern Cutting Made Easy. Pattern cutting is a term that is very popular in the UK to describe the thing that we call pattern making here in the United States. So pattern cutting is, a term that I've heard my friend Charlotta, who's from the UK, use, and actually her Instagram is Pattern Cutting School. And she's very clever, so I'm just giving her a quick shout out because when I saw pattern cutting, the first thing I think of is Charlotta. She's very talented. I'm going to put a link to her Instagram below, so if you want to check her out. She's got so many cool things when it comes to, drafting patterns and designing with patterns. So, I don't know, just a little shout out to Charlotta. I started drafting this already, and I'm going to walk you through the steps I've already done, and then we're going to finish the draft in this video. So basically, like the Apparel Design Through Pattern Making book I shared last week, this starts with the same rectangle. So the rectangle we're working in is from the inside shoulder and the back to the waist, for 0 to 1, and then 0 to 2 is your bust plus some ease. I added an inch of ease to half, so I'll have 2 inches total. So that would be the rectangle, and then you just make the same, obviously, the same measurement to get the right side and the bottom edges of the rectangle. Then the next step was we worked on the neckline and the shoulder. So there was an assumption made that you're going to mark 3/4 of an inch down from the shoulder at the neckline. That's number 4. And then 0 to 5 to get the width of the back neckline was 1/5 of your neck measurement. I thought that was kind of clever. You're measuring across, a straight line, and then you create that curve. Another assumption was made, and this assumption is for slope of shoulder. So you're dropping an inch below center back neckline and drawing a guideline across. And then you measure from the side of the neck down to that guide the length of your shoulder. Now my shoulder length is 4.5 inches. So what I did was I just rotated this down until my ruler hit the 4.5 inch mark, and I made and I just drew that line. So that's my shoulder. Then we use that depth of the shoulder that we got by measuring from the tip of your shoulder down to bicep level. And I shared how to get this measurement in the Cool Tools where I featured this book. So I'll put a link to that in the description below if you want to see how to take that measurement. But basically you're measuring from the tip of your shoulder to bicep level along the outside of your arm. That's how they get the depth measurement, the armhole depth measurement in this book. So you square down from the tip of the shoulder down that distance, and then you draw your underarm line like this. So to get the shape of the armhole, you're basically measuring your upper back, at the level where it's the straight part of your armhole. I got 7 inches, so you mark that, and then you connect 7 to 12. This diagonal is a standard 5/8, so I drew that, and I was very delighted at the ease at which I could shape my back armhole. That worked out great. So the other thing that I did in this part of the draft was I measured halfway between, 8 and 9, and that's where the back waist start will go. Okay, so I did that. Halfway along the bust is where your side seam is. So I did that, and I needed to do that to do the back armhole. Now, I did go a little out of order, and I want to explain what happened here. After figuring out what the across back was, the book jumps over to the front neckline. So I did go to a little bit of order here. I already drew my armhole because I wanted to show you what that looked like. But basically, after you do cross back over here, we switch to the front. Now the front neckline is going to be 1/5 of the neckline measurement less 3/8 of an inch. So it's a little narrower. So if my 1/5 neck was 3.5 inches, so now I'm going to do 3 1/8 over here in the front. So I'm going to go from 2 to 13 is going to be 3 1/8, like this. So I'll just put a dot right here, and that's going to be 13. Then 2 to 14 is going to be the depth of your front neckline, and that is 2 to 13 plus 5/8 of an inch. So if this measures 3 1/8, so down here is going to be 3 1/8 plus 5/8, which is 3 3/4. So we're going to go 3 3/4 down. And I'm just going to make a note. This is 1/5 neck minus 1/8. And this is the 2 to 13 plus 5/8. All right, so I'm just making notes of what I'm doing here. So this is going to be 3 3/4, which puts me right here. And that's going to be 14. Oops, 14. Okay, then 2 to 15, which is going to be a diagonal measurement, is the 2 to 13 plus 1/4 inch. So my 2 to 13 is 3 1/8 plus 1/4 equals 3 3/8. So I'm going to square out diagonally like this. And this is why I like my gridded paper, because I'm on the grid and I can very easily see my 45-degree angle here diagonally needs to be 3 3/8, which is right here. Okay. And that's going to be, this is going to be 15 right there. Okay, so 16 again is down here. I already marked it, so I went out of order. 16 is half of the bust. It's down here. Then the next step is 17 squares up from 16, which I already did. So this is another thing that I did out of order. So 17 is just squares up. That's what the side seam is. And then 18 to 19 is the squaring up the back waist dart. So you can see it kind of skips back and forth a little bit. Okay, so then it says for semi-fitted back dart, mark dart 5/8 of an inch on either side of 19. So it's giving you a instructions here to create a semi-fitted style. They want you to do 5/8 of an inch on either side and draw your waist dart like this. And I'm trying to use glue for all the final shapes so you can see what's a guideline and what's an actual shape. So this would be the back waist dart. Okay. So it's a 1 1/4 inch total back waist dart there. All right, and then we mark the armhole. That was the next step, which I've already done, and I've already showed it to you. So now we're going to turn our attention back to the front. And the one thing I forgot to do here is you want to square out a line from here to here, from 15 out. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a line like that. There is no diagonal. You can see I drew this diagonal line here. We do not need that, but it's there for a guide. Then you just square out a horizontal line off of 15 right there. And so to get the shoulder, my shoulder length was 4.5, plus they want to add a 1 5/8 inch shoulder dart. So if I have shoulder is 4.5 plus 1 5/8, that's going to be 6 1/8. So I'm going to draw a line for my shoulder that is 6 1/8. So again, I'm going to just rotate from 13 until my ruler hits 6 1/8, which is going to be a really angled shoulder. But like I said, I'm just going to go with it and see what happens here. So 6 1/8 puts me right here. And all right, so that would be my shoulder, 4 1/2 plus a 1 5/8 inch dart right there. And that's going to be 20. Okay. 21 is half of that line, so it's going to be 3 1/16. So basically I'm just going to do 3, and then the width of my line will give me that little bit of extra right there. So that's going to be 21. Okay, so then 22 marks the dart, so it's 1 5/8 puts me right here. So this is going to be 22 right here. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to find is the bust level. And bust level is measured from the base of the neck, which is here. I didn't draw in the neck yet. Let's take a new measurement because we're using the center front neck. So I'm just going to get my little ditto form friend here, and I'm just going to measure from my center front like this down to my apex level. That's only 9 1/2 inches. So again, I'm measuring from center front to my bust level. So let's measure down 9 1/2 inches. 9 1/2 inches puts me right here, which is about 2 3/4 inch below. Okay, and that's really where, if you look at me, I'm going to stand up so you can see my bust level is, it is about, 2 and some change below my armhole. So I'm happy with that. And then we're going to square across like this. All right, this is my bust level. And this is 23. All right, and then the next step is half of 10 to 14, going to be 3 3/8. So right here. So again, I'm going to square a line through here. Okay, and then 25, square across from 24 to half the chest measurement plus 2 centimeters for dart on the line. So basically what it's saying here, I want to square from 24, which is here. I want to do my cross half chest plus 2 centimeters, which is, a little less than an inch, like maybe 3/4 of an inch. So my cross chest, take this off so I can have my armhole. Okay, so my cross upper chest is, we'll say 7. 7 plus, we'll say 7 3/4. All right, so we're going to measure 7 3/4 here. And I'm going to mark this as 25. Okay. And then finally, 26, we're going to square down from 25. So I'm going to go ahead and just square this down to armhole level, like this. This is 26. And then 27, measure half of the 10 to 26 line. So 10 to 26 is right here. All right, so we'll say that's 3 3/4 right here. And we're going to, for dart, rule back to 21 and 22. So basically what it wants me to do is come up here and create the dart from to 21 and 22 like this. Okay. Oh, but that's a dart, so let me do it in blue. I'm sorry. This is an actual dart. So we've got here and here. Okay. Okay, and we'll fold the shoulder to get the, you know, the right shape there later. And then you square down to the waist here to get the waist dart, and it's going to be 5/8 on either side. So I'm going to go with 5/8 and 5/8. So here is my waist dart. Then we just have a couple things left to finish this. I mean, I think you can see this has been really easy for me to share with you. So the neckline, which I might have missed a step to do it, you're basically connecting 13, 14, and 15. So basically, you can see, look what a nice shape I can get here with this front neckline. So I'm going to go with, these are giving me some of the nicest shapes out of all the drafts. I like the shape of that neckline better than any of the other drafts. The other thing is I'm going to do my 5/8 inch long guideline here. And then I'm going to draw in my front armhole, and that connects 17, 26, 25, and 20. So I can easily, so I'm going to do this section like that. And then I'm going to do this like this, I think. Something like this. And then this just fills in right here. So I am pretty happy with this front armhole shape. So again, all my curved lines, this is my favorite draft so far. I mean, does it fit? We don't know yet, but I do like the shapes that I'm getting out of this draft. All right, the final thing we're going to do here is just shape the waist. So they recommend marking out approximately 5/8 on either side of 16. So down here, where 16 is, I'm just going to go out 5/8 on either side. And I'm going to connect those like this. So there's my actual side seam. My actual side seam. Okay. I'm just going to check my measurement for my waist. You know, I'm going to have to add these numbers together. So this is 6.5. And this is, all right, so I have 1 inch, 3 inches. So that's 9.5. So that's 19 inches across the front. I know that's not big enough for me. I need 22 inches in my front. So that is going to be a little bit of a thing. I'm going to have to fit that. But let me just check the back. The back is also 3 and, well, 6.5 is the same because this did not take into consideration front to back. So what I'm going to do to fit this to me is after I trace off the back and front, I'm going to take some of the back measurement and I'm going to put it onto the front. So I'm going to shift some of the side seam to the front to make that more balanced, because in the back I have 3 inches, almost 3 inches of extra ease, and in the front I need 3 inches. So I'll be able to shift it around by playing with my side seam. But basically, let me just show you how to finish these darts, and then you can join me Friday for FabFit Friday, and I'm going to show you how this fits. I'm going to sew together the muslin, the draft from both this book, Pattern Cutting Made Easy, and Apparel Design through Patternmaking. Join me Friday to see how both of these fit. Okay. All right, so to finish up here, I'm just going to show you when I fold this dart, I can get the final shape by folding it in the dart. And, you know, I like to use my, my tracing wheel to do this. So basically now I'm just going to go like that. And that's going to give me that subtle shape I need here. Okay, so see, it kind of peaks down there. And then for the shoulder dart, which will be more dramatic, let's fold this. Let's fold this one to go here. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go straight across like this. And you're going to see you end up with this shape. So it lifts this whole part like this. And then it goes like this. Okay, so that's how you get that shape. And then if you look in the actual book, all right, you can see right there, that little jog, that's what I'm getting, that jog. All right, so that's how you finish those darts. All right, so I would say if you haven't drafted anything and you want to give a bodice drafting a try, I feel like this book is a good first book to use. It's very simple, it's easy to follow, and I'm really happy with the shapes I got. So if you have any questions or comments about how to draft a bodice or any bodice related questions, please post those below and I will help you. If you're enjoying my content, consider liking and subscribing to my channel because it helps me grow. Join me for FabFit Friday to see how this fits. It's going to be super exciting. And I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to watch. Have a wonderful rest of your day.